Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Once again, we are here with Barb Whipkey from Wild Birds Unlimited, and she is going to talk about the top 20 birds in your backyard tonight. Um, Barb, as you know, is the owner of Wild Birds Unlimited in Lexington Park and La Plata. They have lots of great information on their website, and also everybody in the store is always happy to help with any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We have a lot of information to cover because I'm going to cover our top 20 birds, the type of foods they like, a little bit of information on identifying them, and then feeders. Birds have not only a favorite backyard, but they also have a favorite feeder in that backyard. So if there's a certain bird you've been trying to get in your yard, it may be because you don't have the style of feeder they like. So we're going to cover a lot of information tonight, but definitely just shout out if you need more information, either in the chat or by stopping in the store. And my team loves solving problems. So you can bring pictures of your feeding station, of your feeders, whatever it is you need help with, and we will definitely help you out there. So I'm going to start off here by sharing my screen. Okay, so we're going to look here at our 20 birds, who they are, the type of feeders, and what they prefer to eat. So first we're going to go into, I'm going to basically cover those style of feeders because as we go through those birds, I'll be covering what type of feeders that those particular birds like. So the first one I have listed is a tray feeder, which is basically what it says. It's a feeder that looks like a tray. One of the coolest things about a tray feeder is every bird can eat from a tray. So if you haven't added a tray feeder to your pole system yet, this is one that I would definitely consider adding soon because everybody can eat from a tray feeder. So definitely think about adding that one to your feeding station. I definitely always with any feeder recommend adding a weather guard to it, especially goodness knows with all this rain we've had recently. By putting a weather guard on it, you're going to protect your investment of food, but also when it's raining, those birds will continue to eat. So a tray feeder, you're going to see a lot of the birds we talk about tonight. I will mention tray feeders. So this one should be one you put on your shopping list. If you haven't added a tray feeder yet, think about that one, adding that soon. Next up is a hopper feeder. This is that feeder that's been around since our great-grandparents have been feeding. This is the feeder that looks like a house style feeder. Great thing about hopper feeders is, again, most birds can eat from a hopper feeder. They hold a lot of seed. They basically, because of the roof, they have their weather guard built into them. You're not going to be out there filling it every day, where with those tray feeders I just mentioned, you do have to fill them a little more often. So that's a plus and a minus of that tray feeder. But with this, you can fill it. If you're going on vacation, you know that most likely it's still going to have food in it when you get back. So again, a hopper feeder is going to feed most of those birds. Next up is going to be a tube feeder. Again, it's basically what it says. It's a feeder that is in a tube shape. Not everybody can eat from tube feeders. So if you've been feeding with a tube feeder and you can't get those cardinals to come, the reason is cardinals aren't able to land on a perch like this and eat because they have such a short, thick neck. They need to eat forward facing. So they can't land on that perch and turn sideways to eat. So tube feeders are great because they're not going to be as busy as a hopper feeder or a tray feeder, but they're not so great because they're not going to feed everybody. So again, it depends on who you're looking to feed. However, with our tube feeders, you can see here I have a tray on the bottom. So that would allow those cardinals to land here and eat from that bottom port. Next up is finch feeder. So this is similar to the tube feeder I just showed you, but you'll notice that it has very tiny little ports there. And that is designed to only hold finch food. And it's only going to allow those birds with the smaller beak to eat from those. So this one is designed to just feed our finch. So this can be great if you're having problems with those annoying blackbirds right now. By adding a finch feeder to it, we're coming into nesting season for our goldfinches. So you're probably seeing a lot of goldfinches starting to show up at your feeders. By putting out a finch feeder, you're going to have a food and a feeder that's designed just for those finches. So that's your finch feeder. Next up is peanut feeder. And I have a couple different styles. This particular one, you'll notice, has little squares on it. This is designed for peanut splits. Peanut splits are basically the shelled peanuts. So when you take a peanut, you crack it open, you have the inside, the meat of that peanut, and then you take the meat of that peanut and you split it in half. You have a peanut split. And that's what this feeder is going to hold. I've put a tray on this one because birds like our cardinals and even our bluebirds aren't so great at clinging to a feeder. So now they can eat from this feeder. And actually, we'll talk about it when we get to them, but both bluebirds and cardinals are big peanut lovers. So this then can feed those birds as well. So that's for peanut splits. You can also put, if you use our bark butter bits, you can put bark butter bits in this. I use our Tree Nutty Plus, which is a great mix. It has sunflower chips, peanuts, tree nuts in it, and raisins. So that one you have to be cautious if you have dogs who can get under your feeders. You don't want to feed anything with raisins in that case. But that's another food that can go in a feeder like this one. And then another style of peanut feeder is this guy here with peanuts still in the shell. And that one is going to be directed towards your blue jays, your tufted titmice, your downy woodpeckers, birds like that. Even your white-breasted nuthatches love these ones. So that's going to be peanuts in the shell. And that's our peanut feeders. Then we get to a cylinder feeder. Any of you who shopped with us are probably familiar with our cylinders. Cylinders are a compacted seed. It comes basically in a cylinder like that. And you can use a feeder such as this. We have a lot of different styles. We'd be here for a long time if I pulled all those styles out. But this particular one is one I have here, has the roof already built onto it. This one is our bistro. That's one of my current favorite cylinder feeders. So I grabbed that one to show you. And that was Rascal, the little seed character that was on there. All of our seed characters have names on them. And those that have been around have seen our holiday ones, but we do have some new holiday ones coming out, and some old ones that have been out before are coming out of retirement and coming back this Christmas. So stay tuned for those. Then suet feeders is our next one. So we have everybody's probably familiar with suet. That's the squares. What a lot of you may not realize that suet is a food you want to feed year round. We're familiar with feeding it in the winter to give the birds a source of fat to help them keep warm, but they also use it to feed their young. The only way baby birds can get moisture is through their food. With all this rain we've had, not a lot of insects are flying right now. It's difficult for the birds to get insects, so they're a little more dependent on the suet right now than in years past. So suet is extremely helpful during years like this to offer them. So you can put it in the little green cages like everybody's familiar with. There's a black one similar there in that picture. Or one styled like this. The difference is this little tail prop down here. When woodpeckers eat, I'll show you with a hand that makes sense here, they will use their tail to prop against it for balance. So this is called a tail prop to give those larger woodpeckers the ability to eat. So they'll just prop their tail there for balance. So that is a suet feeder. And we have several different styles and designs. Multi-purpose feeder, the one in that picture would be considered a multi-purpose feeder because you've got that hopper there. Down at the bottom of it, you've got a tray feeder. And then on the side, you've got a suet feeder. So basically, you can feed multi types of food. The cylinder feeder I showed you is also multi-purpose because you can put the cylinder on there, but in here you also have a tray feeder, so you could put loose seed in there. So those are the basic types of feeder, and then in each of those categories, there's a bazillion different styles, but that just gives you a quick little overview there. And then we're going to hop into the birds. The first one most of you are probably familiar with is our northern cardinal. And on the right, the top one, the red, bright red cardinal is our male cardinal. And then down below, the more muted coloring is the female. They're going to have those orange beaks, but right now, if you watch, you're going to notice that some of those cardinals do not have orange beaks. If you see a cardinal without an orange beak, what you're looking at is actually a juvenile right now. So in the beginning, they're going to have a dark beak, and then as they mature, that beak will turn orange. So as you're watching your cardinals over the next week or so, pay attention to the color of the beak, and that will help you identify whether you have an adult or a juvenile you're looking at. Another thing you're going to be noticing is that you're going to start seeing a lot of bald cardinals. Cardinals and blue jays are the most obvious, but the cardinals are very plentiful right now, looking bald. After birds nest, they molt. At the end of the season, they will molt and put their winter feathers on. They need to have fresh feathers on to go through the winter. You can help them through that molt by offering high protein, high calcium foods. So if you're feeding our foods, anything that says bark butter on it has added calcium. Anything that says plus has added calcium. So that would be our bark butter bits, any of that. If you're feeding the bluebird blend, the bluebird bugberry blend, that also has it in it. But as you're shopping, if you're shopping elsewhere, just pay attention and look for foods that are high in protein, high in calcium. And that's going to help those birds through the molt. If you're shopping in here, you can ask us and we'll help you through that. If you're also the nesting blend that we sell, We sell a loose nesting blend, and then we also sell cylinders. You'll notice that we continue to sell that as we go through into September. The reason we do that is because it's high protein, high calcium. So it's everything the birds need to get through that molt, to help them through that. So continue feeding that nesting blend all the way through. So high protein, high calcium for all your nesting birds. And don't worry when you see those bald cardinals. Don't stress out. You've not done anything wrong. It's not a mistake you've made. It's just part of the process. So foods to offer them. Again, if you're shopping in here, you've probably seen our cardinal confetti that came out this spring. Comes in, imagine that, a bright red cardinal colored bag. It is designed everything the cardinals like and in cardinal bite-sized pieces, the sizes they prefer. Just a little fun fact here, as our Wild Birds Unlimited foods are being tested, I am one of the people that are lucky enough to get to test those foods. And it's a really cool process that we go through testing those foods, putting them in feeders, watching to see, does it bring a lot of cardinals? What do the cardinals like? What are the cardinals leaving behind? Or when we did it with the bluebirds, same thing. What pieces seem too big? What do we need to make smaller? The peanuts in the bluebird blend originally was too big, and we needed to make those smaller to make the bluebirds happy. So it's a really cool process that goes through. Yeah. So cardinal confetti, sunflower seeds. So that's your black oil sunflower seeds or sunflower chips. When I talk about chips tonight, I'm talking about sunflower seeds that have already been shelled. So you're going to hear me mention a lot of chips tonight. I'm not talking potato chips. Don't go buy a bag of potato chips for your birds. When I mention chips, I just mean black oil sunflower seeds that have already been shelled. Safflower is another good one that cardinals absolutely love. I mentioned earlier that they're big peanut lovers, and then bark butter bits. And a few little fun facts about cardinals. If you're not seeing cardinals at your feeders, try getting up a little bit earlier and taking a look out at your feeders. Often on my, we have, I don't know if you've seen our smart feeders here, but we have camera smart feeders. And I will see them before 5:30 in the morning a lot of times on my smart feeder eating at the feeders. And then they're also the last ones there at night. The reason is, and when the feeders are really busy, cardinals don't like to be at the feeders when it's really busy. They tend to be a little bit shyer bird. So pay attention last thing at night, first thing in the morning. And you may find that you actually have cardinals visiting and just you're missing them. And then a lot of female birds are not able to sing, but cardinals are one that the female is actually able to sing. And she spends a lot of time while she's sitting on her nest singing. Sadly, she also alerts the predators a lot of time that she's sitting on the nest while she's singing. Okay, another one that is not here right now, but we'll get ready for them about the time the hummingbirds leave. The dark-eyed juncos will return for the winter. They are a Canadian bird that come and spend their winter with us. A lot of people refer to them as the little snowbirds, but this is one where you want to bring those tray feeders in. A lot of people do not believe they come to a feeder. The reason is because, again, if you look, there is basically no neck going on with that little bird. He goes straight from body, straight to head. So if you add a tray feeder or you put a hopper feeder out, you can actually entice them to come up to your feeders. And that's especially helpful if you have feral cats in your area, to try to get them feeding up higher off the ground. It can be a lot safer for the birds to feed them up higher. So using the tray, the hopper feeder, or feeder, if you've got the tube feeder, add that tray onto the bottom of the tube feeder. And again, they're going to be looking for black oil sunflower, those sunflower chips, or also white millet. Most of the time we discourage using very much millet because it's just, most birds aren't a big fan of it, but they are one that likes millet. So a lot of our customers in the wintertime will add some millet to some of our other blends. And again, they're known as a ground feeder, but you can entice them up to your feeders with the right feeders. And another is the mourning doves. Again, they don't have a lot of neck there, but they do have a massive body. So it can be tough for them to feed from a tube feeder. So a tray feeder or a hopper feeder is a good option for them. However, with that said, if you're having problems with them sleeping in your tray feeders or hopper feeders, you may want to do away with the tray feeders and instead go to tube feeders. So they can be a bird you want, or they can be a problem bird. So again, just come and talk to us and let us know what your needs are, and we can help you solve those. Same type of foods are their preferred foods, that black oil sunflower, the chips, the safflower, and the millet. They are very voracious eaters. They eat about 20% of their body weight in a single day. They nest up to 6 times a season, so they are still in the middle of nesting, and they tend to lay 2 eggs per each nest, so they don't raise large nests. And then our good old little Carolina chickadee. A lot of people think we have the black-capped chickadee here in Southern Maryland, but it's actually the Carolina chickadee is the chickadee that we have here in our area. And they will be happy to eat from any feeder you put out. It does not matter what you put out, they will eat from any of them. They are able to perch, they are able to cling, they'll eat from the tray feeder, the hopper feeder, the peanut feeder I showed, the one with the peanut splits that you can cling from. They love those just as well. So they are not a finicky bird as far as the feeder, nor as far as the food. They will eat just about any food you offer as well. They do say their own name when they call. It just sounds like they're saying chickadee-dee-dee, chickadee-dee-dee. So it's a pretty easy one to learn their call. If you want to learn their call, it's a good one to hear. They are little hoarders, so they are always on the move, storing food away. So as you watch them, especially as we go into the fall, they'll start caching food away for winter. And they are just always active, always moving, always on the go. And then the little tufted titmouse. This is actually a picture I took, and that is a full-size peanut. And they will come to that peanut feeder I showed you, and they will carry off full-size peanuts. If it's too big for them to get their little beak around, they'll pop a little hole in it and carry it by sticking part of their beak in through the hole and carry it off. Sometimes they'll open the peanut, split the peanut right there in the feeder and just take the peanut out and leave the empty shell in the feeder. They, just like the chickadee, can eat from any feeder and will pretty much eat any food that you offer them as well. They love all the sunflower, the safflower, peanuts in or out of the shell, mealworms, peanut blends, bark butter, suet. They do not care. They do a cool little thing where they eat with their feet. So you'll catch them with a peanut and they'll actually hold it between their feet and sit there and eat. So they're an entertaining little bird. They have no empty nesters. So once they hatch their babies, those babies will stay with them throughout the winter. So if you see them at the feeder and maybe there's a group of 5, 6, 7 of them together, you can safely assume that most likely that is mom, dad, and their hatchlings from this year that are now adults, but will stay with them until next nesting season. They'll spend the winter together. And then number 6 is our downy woodpecker. They're our most common woodpecker. And they, again, will come to just about any feeder. However, they do prefer something they can cling to. Their favorite food is suet. So any type of suet. So if you're wanting to get woodpeckers in, really consider putting some suet out there. Some of the bark butter bits, things like that. Again, though, you can use hopper feeders. You can use cylinder feeders. They can eat from most tray feeders. However, it is a struggle for them. If you give them a choice between a tray feeder and something they can cling from, they're usually going to go with the feeder they can cling to instead. Any type of foods with peanut blends are going to be their preferred. If they are out at your feeder eating and something startles them, a hawk comes over, a jay comes in imitating a hawk call, they are just going to freeze against that feeder and they will stay there frozen. Where most of the birds are going to take off, that downy will just freeze right there. So if you see that happening, that's usually what's going on. One time I saw it went right up and actually petted the downy. I was able to touch him. He was so frozen in spot that he just froze there. On that one, you can see a tiny bit of red at the back of the head. When you see the red, that's going to be a male. The ones without the red is the female. Of course, right now we've got some fledglings out there, so that's not 100% accurate right now. If you see a little spot that looks like it's black, but going to be turning red, then you've got a juvenile that is a male, but that just hasn't turned red, but it'll be noticeable that it's a red spot that's turning black. Cool thing about the downies, mom sits on the eggs and takes care of the babies during the day. Dad takes the night shift. So Daddy Downy definitely gets voted Dad of the Year because he definitely takes the more dangerous shift. And then our good old house finch. So a lot of people get confused by these thinking they have purple finch. The only time you're going to see a purple finch here in Southern Maryland is going to be in the winter time. And then even then, they're few and far between, and it's not every winter. So the ones you're seeing right now are all house finches. The ones in the picture without red on them are females. The ones with the red on them are males. So you can safely say if you're seeing them right now, you have house finches. The only time it may be a purple finch might be in the winter time. We talked about those finch feeders. That's a great way to feed them, but you can also use tube feeders for feeding them. Niger, which is a little black seed, is a great food for them. If it's not in a squirrel-proof location, if you don't have a baffle on it, I recommend going with Niger. But if you have your pulse system squirrel-proofed, if you've got a baffle on it, squirrels can't get up, then I recommend going with our finch blend, which is a combination of Niger and sunflower chips. That's their 2 favorite foods. So you will actually get more activity by using the finch blend, which is a combination. You can also use just plain sunflower chips or any of our blends that have like the sunflower chips and peanuts. They'll go after that sunflower chips. Plain black oil, sunflower, or safflower. They are a big fan of safflower. Safflower is a very hard white seed. The win with that is that most blackbirds are not able to crack that. And another plus is a lot of squirrels find it bitter tasting. I say a lot because if they're desperate, they will eat it. And this year has not been nature's not been very kind to the squirrels this year. Acorns weren't plentiful, so the squirrels are a little more desperate this year than a lot of years. Cool thing with the house finches, they never forget where to find food. So if you had this feeder up, they found that feeder during a hard time, they're going to remember that they can show up at your house and you'll have a feeder going for them. If you call us in the store and you say, hey, I have this bird nesting in a wreath, that's all we need to hear to tell you that you have a house finch nesting in your wreath. They absolutely love to nest in wreaths. We always recommend to our customers to get those wreaths off your door at the end of February, because otherwise you will likely have a finch nest on that wreath, and they are very messy nesters. So unless you want to risk a ruined wreath and maybe even a finch inside your house the first time you open that door, we recommend taking the wreath down. We have some flat door hangers you can put up there if you want something on that door. But definitely get those wreaths down in the late winter before the finch find it. If you want to allow them to nest nearby, put a plant, hang it somewhere on your porch, and they'll use that instead. And then our good old blue jays. This is the bird that I most defend in the store. We hear all the time, oh, they're bullies, and I will come to their defense every time. This is your backyard guardian. He's the one who's going to let you know when there's a snake trying to get into a bird nest. He's the one that's going to chase the hawks off that are waiting to get onto your bird feeders, to your pole system. He's going to help protect your yard. So it really behooves you to friend the blue jays and invite them into your yard. And you can do that with a peanut feeder. This one I would just take out and yell, JJ, and lay a handful on the deck. And they would come, as soon as they heard me call JJ, they would come down to get a handful. They will come to tray feeders, hopper feeders, peanut feeders. They love anything with nut blends, but their absolute favorite is the peanuts in the shell. They will do a cool thing that you'll watch. They'll pick up the peanuts, drop them, and they'll actually weigh them until they find the heaviest peanuts. They'll also take and drop them down their throat. And I've seen them put up to 3 down their throat and then 1 crosswise and fly off with them. This is more in the fall when they're caching them away for winter. With that said, they can hide food up to 2 miles away and actually remember where they put it. They're an extremely intelligent bird. The reason they get such a bad rap is they imitate the call of the red-tailed hawk. And so they'll be coming in, the red-shouldered hawk, sorry. They'll imitate the hawk call as they're coming in. So the other birds hear this hawk call and they see this bright, big blue bird coming in. So the other birds will clear out. But if you ever watch when the blue jays are there eating and the other birds can see, oh, it's just a blue jay, they don't hesitate to go in and eat. It's that initial approach that scares them away. And then the good old Carolina wren. So that little bird that's been waking you up at 5:30 in the morning, this is him. They are the first in the morning to wake up. They can sing over 40 different songs, and they do. And they start at 5:30 a.m. They're awake and they want to make sure everybody else is too. They again can eat from pretty much any type of feeder, and they will eat about any type of food. Um, they like to be near houses. So these are a great one to put a window feeder up, and they love to be near the houses and near their people. So you can put a window feeder up. We've got these little roosting pockets. We have a pair that sleep in this every night, year round, unless she's sitting on a nest. And then he continues to sleep in it when she's nesting. But these are fun. I just hang them from my front porch and they sleep right in there. Most birds, we talk about they bond for life. But Carolina, when we say that, when they're not nesting, they go off and do their own thing. Carolina wrens are a little bit different than that. They actually stay together 365 days a year. So they pair bond year round. And then the white-breasted nuthatch. So this is one that you may not see if you don't have a lot of trees around you, because they do tend to live in a more wooded area. But they're going to be looking, they'll come to a hopper feeder. They love the cylinder feeders because they are a clinging bird. So they're going to be clinging on these, but they do a cool thing, and they tend to eat upside down. The first time you see one, you're probably going to notice that the bark on the tree looks like it's moving, and you're like, what the heck is going on out there? But they're a really fun one. They'll come to those peanut feeders, tube feeders. They're a big nut loving bird. So anything with nut in it is going to bring those in. Sunflower, mealworms, bark butter. If you haven't seen bark butter, it's a product you can put right on a tree, and they love to come to that one. And they'll also do a thing where they will take sunflower, black oil sunflower, and they'll actually put it in the bark of the tree and then actually hatch it right there in the bark of the tree. So they're a super cool bird. And then number 11 is our goldfinch. Very sweet bird, but if you watch them right now, you're going to notice that they're starting to behave a little more aggressive. They are our last nester of the season, and so they are just now starting to gear up for nesting. They are a very strict vegetarian bird, so they wait until late in the season, typically late July, August, to nest, when they know that things are going to go to seed and there's not going to be a shortage of seeds to feed their young. A finch feeder is the way to feed them. You can also use a tube feeder and put the black oil, sunflower, or the sunflower chips in there. We talked about the birds molting after nesting season. They are the one songbird that actually nests twice a year. So they'll nest at the end of the season, and they'll lose that pretty bright yellow coloring, and they'll put on kind of an olive drab coloring. But then come spring, they're going to put those pretty yellow feathers back on again. They stay year round. A lot of people do not realize that they stay with us for the winter. So through the winter, you want to continue with that finch feeder. Don't put it away. You can back off and put a smaller amount in if you feel like they're not there, but continue feeding because they are still around. And now is a good time to also put out nesting material, because they love to use the nesting material for making their nests. where a lot of our birds don't use nesting material. They actually do. And then our second woodpecker is our red-bellied woodpecker. This one, a lot of people confuse it and call it the red-headed woodpecker. But if you look at that bottom picture, you'll see where he gets his name. That is actually, he's got a little red belly going on there. So the red-headed woodpecker would be a solid red, solid blacks, and solid white in coloring. So this is actually a red-bellied woodpecker. They're going to come pretty much to any of the feeders you offer, but again, they prefer the clinging feeders, peanut feeders, and again, suet feeders. Excuse me. Any of your woodpeckers are going to love suet feeders. For foods, put that suet out, the bark butter, peanuts, any foods with peanuts in it is going to bring in those woodpeckers. Their tongue is about 3 times the length of their bill. And then the white-throated sparrow. This is another one that's not here right now. It is only here in the winter, so they will return about the same time as those dark-eyed juncos, another one of those Canadian birds. And if you look at that picture, you'll see where it gets his name, that little white throat going on there. The feeder, they're going to come to a tray or hopper only. They're another one that's a ground feeder. Again, short, thick neck. So you want to entice them up off the ground by using a tray or a hopper feeder, offering the sunflower chips, no mess blends, bark butter bits, things like that, and try to bring those up. And then number 14, the good old house sparrows. This is what I refer to as the parking lot birds. Anybody that's very familiar with house sparrows probably is not a fan. These are not a native species. About 100 of these birds were released in Brooklyn in 1851, and they have become a huge problem for bluebirds. So if you have nesting bluebirds, I encourage you to try to discourage house sparrows from being in your yard. They love millet. So what I would say is don't offer any foods with millet, Milo, things like that. If you do shop in here, you can let us know they're a problem and we'll put a note in your account to make sure you don't get anything with millet in it. They prefer to eat from trays and hoppers. So again, you can kind of avoid those type of feeders. But really millet would be the best thing to do, would be avoid millet, because millet is like candy to these birds. These are not one most people are going out of their way to entice in. These are a big problem bird. If you're having problems with them, we can talk a little more about some ways to resolve it as far as your bluebird houses. If you're having problems with them getting in, there's some adaptations we can make to your bluebird house to try to keep them out of your bluebird house. But yeah, these are more of a problem bird. These aren't typically ones people are wanting to entice into their yards. And then the good old European starlings. That is our other non-native one. Back in 1890, somebody thought we should have all the Shakespearean birds here in the US. So in 1890, they released a few dozen, and now we are bombarded with the European starling. Fortunately for us, as long as bluebird houses are sized correctly, they're not typically going to be a problem for our bluebirds. If you're having problems with them overtaking your feeders, a little hint, something you can do is take a tray feeder and put just sunflower chips in it. They prefer not to eat sunflower chips out of a tray feeder. They don't mind eating them from a tube feeder, but they don't like sunflower chips out of a tray feeder. So if you remember the tray feeder, this was a tray feeder, and then you would put just sunflower chips. Don't make it our blends because there's peanut splits in there, and they would just come and pick out the peanut splits. So you would do straight sunflower chips. That's the already shelled sunflower chips in a tray feeder. And they're not a fan of that. Don't ask me why. I don't have an answer to that one, but that is one option you can go for to try to keep them out of there. Very intelligent little birds, but they also can be another very annoying little bird. And then the grackle, and that is our other little problem child. They also love tray feeders, hopper feeders, sunflower, peanuts, and millets. If you're having problems with them, again, come see us. We can help you with those. We can put cages depending on your feeders. Bring pictures of your feeders. If you have some of our tube feeders, we can drop cages on. You can use safflower. They're not able to crack that shell, things like that. They are known as copycat birds because they can copy a lot of sounds, car alarms, other bird sounds. They're not as good as mockingbirds at copying things, but they do a pretty darn good job. But they are also voted the most unliked bird because they do bring the whole clan when they come to visit, and they tend to just take over feeders. And then the brown-headed cowbird. I think this is our last of disliked birds. This one is kind of a misunderstood one, though. They like trays, hopper feeders, sunflower chips, and peanuts. The reason they are disliked is they are known as what is a brood parasite bird. They have no idea how to build a nest or incubate their own eggs. All they know how to do is lay their eggs in somebody else's nest. A single female cowbird will lay 30 to 40 eggs a season, and she will drop those off in other birds' eggs. There's known about 220 species that she will drop them in, and she will drop them off for somebody else to raise. Birds know that their goal is to keep their species going, and that's what she's doing, is what is ingrained in her, is keeping her species going. The reason this is how they did it is because the brown-headed cowbirds used to travel with the bison herds. And when the bisons moved, they had to move because that was their meals. They ate the insects off of the bison. So they had to be ready to move when the bisons moved. So the only way they could keep their species going is by laying those eggs and leaving them behind for somebody else to incubate and raise. To this day, they do not know how to build a nest, incubate eggs. That's all they know how to do. So if you ever see a little Carolina wren or a little chipping sparrow or goldfinch, somebody incubating or feeding this large bird, that's probably what you have, is they are feeding a cowbird that they raised. It is illegal to destroy that egg, to remove it, to poke pinholes, to shake it. I've heard all the stories. It is illegal to do that. And in fact, there's been studies that have shown that people that have done that the female has come by, checked on her egg, is able to tell that somebody has messed with her egg and has destroyed the other, say it's a bluebird, has destroyed the other eggs in that nest. So you have to just let nature do what nature does and leave that egg alone. Okay, up next is the hairy woodpecker. Looks very similar to the downy woodpecker, But if you look at the side of that head, you'll notice that that beak looks too long for that head. The beak on that bird is almost as long as the profile of that head. And that's one of the ways that you can tell the difference. It's also about 2 inches bigger, but that's really hard to tell when they're out there on a feeder unless they happen to be side by side. So if you can catch the beak, it will be noticeable once you've seen it a couple times. You'll be able to tell that that beak is too long for that bird's head, and you'll be able to pick them out. Again, we've got red on the head, so it's the male. So in songbirds, the males are brighter because we need the females to be more subdued because they're typically the ones sitting on the nest. Same as the other woodpeckers. They love those suet feeders and peanut feeders. Cylinder feeders are a favorite because they can cling on it similar to a tree. They're going to come in to any bark butter, peanut blends, or any sunflower. And then number 19, the bluebird of happiness, one of most people's favorite birds. They're going to come to a tray feeder, hopper feeder. The easy button, I mentioned it already. The Bluebird Bugberry blend has everything already blended up for you. So that's a nice, easy one to feed. It already has all the favorites. Sunflower chips, no mess blends, mealworms, either live or dry. Dry, you can just get a bag of them. During the summer months, it is not as easy to get them eating dry by themselves, but if you mix them with the food or with bark butter bits, then they accept them a little more readily. Some of the cylinders they like, especially with the mealworms in them, they love them that way. They are a cavity nester, but they don't have the ability to excavate a nest. So they can't find an abandoned rotting tree and dig out a cavity to make a nest. So they are dependent on abandoned woodpecker holes or nest boxes that we put up for them. So if you've got the space, definitely consider putting up a bluebird house. They are just now starting to nest for their last nesting of the year. They nest 3 times here in Southern Maryland. So it's not too late to put up a nest box. We definitely recommend putting a snake and raccoon baffle on it. That's going to be a longer baffle. It's about 3 feet long. That's the biggest predators of bluebirds. They're also a water loving bird. So adding a water feature is going to help bring them in. And Kimberly was asking me about, before we started, about mosquitoes. A couple things you can do to help with mosquitoes is solar fountains. We've got solar fountains, water wigglers, things like that to keep water moving, then the mosquitoes can't lay. You can also put mosquito dunks in there. You drop one of these little tablets in the water. Every time you change the water, you pull the tablet out, clean the bird bath, put fresh water, drop it back in until it's dissolved. And that will keep the mosquitoes from laying. And then number 20, the good old ruby-throated hummingbird. And they are here right now. Top with the red is the male. Without the red is the female. Easy peasy to feed them. 1 part sugar, 4 parts water. No honey, no brown sugar, no organic sugar, just plain old-fashioned sugar. Right now with the heat we're having, you're going to need to change that about every 3 to 4 days. We do have a nectar defender. You can get that other places as well. But that is copper, a natural part of the hummingbird diet. That will extend the life expectancy about 2 times the normal. So if you're having to change it about every 3 days, you can expect to get about 6 days out of it, but that will keep it fresher longer. That's a good way too. But anytime you notice that water getting cloudy, it's time to change it. The hummingbird's tongue is longer than their beak. And we used to think that hummingbirds actually sucked up that nectar, but they actually lick it up at the rate of 13 licks per second. And if you use like our hummingbird feeders that we have, the little discs that are clear on the side, you'll actually see their tongue in there. And it's crazy to watch how fast that little thing is going. So they are here now. They will be here until September. I recommend keeping a feeder up until at least Halloween, preferably Thanksgiving, to catch those late migrators coming through. A lot of people are saying, I'm not seeing many this year. The females are sitting on nests right now. So that is one of the reasons. Last night I saw one of the juveniles. So we're starting to have juveniles coming to the nest. So you're going to see your numbers start to build, but just make sure you're changing that nectar regularly. And then as you see, if you're starting to see where they're chasing each other off, that's your sign to add another hummingbird feeder. If you can add another one in a new location, that will increase your population because they do not like to share those hummingbird feeders. So more hummingbird feeders will bring you more hummingbirds. Okay, and then I'm going to stop share on this and we will see what questions we have.
Okay, so John had a question about which of these birds are the easiest to attract to their proper birdhouses.
To birdhouses?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody walks in the door and says, I want to put up a birdhouse, but they really don't have one in mind, I always direct them to a bluebird house. The reason for that is a bluebird house in our area will house a bluebird, a chickadee, a titmouse, and a Carolina wren. So by putting that one up, any of those 4 birds can nest in it. I have multiple bluebird houses up through my yard, and at any given time, there's any of those 4 birds in them. I typically we are out in the woods where I shouldn't even have bluebirds, but we do. But I know there's only going to be one family of bluebirds in it because they're not going to let another bluebird pair share that small of a yard, or our yard's very wooden. But because chickadees and titmice and Carolina wren aren't dining on those ground insects, they'll let them share the yard. So the other yards will be full. In fact, just recently, what was the distance, Chip, between that bluebird and that titmouse nest box? That's what I was going to guess. About 20 feet away from where the bluebird was nesting and the tufted titmouse was nesting. They fledged within days of each other.
And Miss Patricia had a question. She said occasionally she'll see robins and she wants to know if anybody has seen orioles.
So orioles, we typically only see them during migration. However, with that said, we do have a few customers over the last 3 and 4 years that have been keeping 1 or 2 through the winter months. As our winters have become milder, they have not been migrating as far south. With that said, you always hear orioles like oranges and grape jelly. In the winter months, when they stay, they are eating peanut splits, mealworms, and the bug nut and berry cylinders. So they're going for higher fat foods in the winter months. So we always tell people, if you want to try to get them in the winter month, in the bark butter bits is the other thing. If you want to try in the winter months to attract them, so to bring them in the fall and keep them, to use those higher fat foods, which are all foods that are good to offer anyway because of the cold.
Oh, the mosquito thing again. You said that that just melts and like the birds can't taste it, or it doesn't
Correct. It's
bother them
safe.
in the water.
Yeah, it's safe for the all wildlife.
Okay. All right. I have to get some of those. Okay.
Yeah, it'll
All right.
just slowly dissolve. So every time you go to clean, just pull it out, clean the bird bath, and whatever's remaining, drop it in there again.
Oh, so it doesn't matter how big the bird bath is?
No.
All right. So next month in August, Barb will be speaking about the 12 elements of a successful birding feeding station. So it's a continuation basically of what she said here. More details. She'll be adding more details so you guys can have the perfect bird feeding station in your yards. I think that's everything. Any more questions or anything else, Barb?
Yep, nothing for me.
All right. Thank you very much all for coming. Thank you once again, Barb, for your excellent presentation. We always enjoy having you. You're always so informative. We really appreciate you joining us for the library and everybody else in the public as well. Thank you.